stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not losing to the Steelers anymore. Let's go, Cleveland. What are you going to do about it? Heinz Field, no head coach, no Petonio, no experience, no shot. And then this happened. First play of the game.
Get the ball, Ben. Get the ball, Ben. I don't want it. I don't think I really want it. I'm going to act like I'm going to get it, but...
Mike, you may be onto something. I don't know if he wanted to recover that.
No, he didn't.
And I don't know what the hell happened with Pouncey. He's played about 20,000 snaps in his career, and that one went way over the head. 21-0 already. Then we got an interception by damn Red Wine.
Overthrows.
Sheldrick Red Wine. Oh, man, that is good. And he's edging like the finest state Pinot. Dancing on the tongue, dancing in Heinz Field. Roethlisberger, oh my gosh, he looked miserable. He ended up throwing for 500 yards because they had you, but Kareem Hunt, boom, boom, boom. Baker said afterwards, Kareem ran pissed off. And guess what? Kareem's getting his old team now next week. I mean, there's a whole storyline there. Ben just sitting there looking off into the Pittsburgh Knights. An unbelievable night, not just for the Browns, but the city of Cleveland, for the AFC, 48-37. They were up 28-0 in the first quarter. History. And after that loss, let's hear from the guy we talked about on that fumbled snap, Ben Roethlisberger. What happened out there, Seven?
It wasn't good enough. You know, when you lose a game like this, you can look back and evaluate all you want on the season and how you did during this game and that game and runs and stretches. I mean, at some point we'll look back on the whole thing, but you know, when it doesn't end the way you want it to, you're always going to feel some kind of way, like you came short or, you know, it's your fault.
Big Ben, bad loss, becoming the first quarterback to throw for 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in a playoff game. Not a statistics fan. You know, nobody wants to hear about this. Everyone wants to hear about what's the future for Big Ben, what's the future for the Steelers the morning after a wild card weekend. So how disappointing was this? How brutal was this in the context of what they need to do going forward, honestly?
They looked unprepared. They looked like they weren't ready. It looked like they didn't necessarily even want to be out there to start the game. There was 20 and I didn't understand what was happening. And Ben Roethlisberger didn't just have the bad snap where the ball looked like it was kryptonite. He didn't want to kick it. That ball's there. You kick that ball out in the back of the end zone to safety.
You're right.
And Ben Roethlisberger's like, I'm not going near it. Then he throws all those picks. It reminded me of something that was brought up a few times last night. Let's see the footage. In 2000, Dan Marino played the Jaguars in a playoff game. They lost 62-7, and Marino he was like, it ain't the Dan Marino we grew up with.
Yeah. 62-7?
62-7. The last game Dan Marino ever played in the NFL in a playoff game. 62-7. The other side, Mark Brunell and Jay Fiedler didn't even throw for 200 yards, and they beat them. There's just turnover after turnover after turnover. And it was one of those deals where it's like, I don't know if there's any coming back from this. Ben threw for 501 yards. I don't remember one of them. I honestly don't. And I don't think Steelers fans will either. It might as well have been 0 yards. I don't know what Ben's got left. I can leave this game thinking, gosh, like Ben and Tomlin, I really relied on Ben and Tomlin. Like those guys are going to be the ones
Look at that.
that'll make it happen. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to win a playoff game or make a run with Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback after what we've seen the last 2 months.
The loss to Finley, I mean, they lost 5 of the last 6 games. We talked about it on the show last week.
It wasn't just like a 1 week thing. They've been really bad, and that game, they got to watch football all day long on Saturday, all day long on Sunday, and to still not come out with any sense of urgency or...
So what happened?
I hate to say pride. It felt like they didn't... that Steelers logo didn't seem to matter that much last night.
I think it seemed like they expected the Cleveland Browns to be the same old Cleveland Browns and give away the game.
Yeah, they said it.
Yeah, and the Browns came out and punched them in the face. And I look at the way that they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they lined up a lot of times in 2 tight ends and just ran the football. They physically beat them up. I'm not used to seeing a Mike Tomlin coach team being physically beat up. 68 pass attempts, man. 68 pass attempts for Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, I know we're in an age of offense and throwing the football all over the yard, but I'm not surprised that they got beat like this based off the type of an offense that they run. I'm surprised that this defense got beat up the way it got beat up, but I'm not surprised that the offense came out and looked this way. I have to repeat it again. Over the last month of the season, Mike Tomlin, whether they were winning or losing, has been saying in every post-game press conference, our game ain't right. Yeah. We got to do something about this. This is like JV football. And then you go out and you rest Ben Roethlisberger and other starters week 17, knowing your game isn't right. And so, I'm a big fan of Mike Tomlin. But at the same time, he has a level of accountability here. You rested some stars. The first play of the game, 2 of the stars that you rested, your starting center and your quarterback, give up points on the first play of the game.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, like to your point, Peter, they weren't ready for this game. They got physically beat up, and it just seemed like the better team won the game. I'm sorry to say it, but that's what happened.
It was over in the first quarter. You know,
Yeah.
you might say the Steelers had no juice, and imagine if Heinz Field was filled and it was roaring and they're playing the songs. That's total nonsense. You played a whole season with an empty stadium, and the other team didn't have their head coach, so I don't hear any COVID excuses. Let's talk about that first play. Let's actually see this snap, the Pouncey over the head of Ben Roethlisberger. Watch what Roethlisberger does right
Watch Roethlisberger.
It's like you can get it.
You get it.
James.
You get
Listen,
it. Nope.
every alarm in your head is going off. Oh my God, it's a snap. Fall on it, do anything. Or to Peter's point, kick it and give up the 2 points. Cam Newton was massacred to this day for not giving the right effort.
Talk about it.
To recover a fumble.
Talk
to
about
this day
it.
that comes up. Roethlisberger is sitting here twiddling his thumbs, trying on the first play of the game. It's like mentally he was already checked out, and I gotta say, like, I think he might be done. I don't mean washed up physically. I would not be surprised in any way if Ben Roethlisberger retires because he looks miserable. I don't even think he looked that happy during the 11-0 start. It just doesn't. He's sitting there on the bench just staring off into the night. It doesn't look like someone who's getting any joy from football, regardless of the win or the loss. And I'm not splitting hairs and reaching for that fumble thing. There was something psychological where he did not want to bend down and pick that thing up, or he didn't want to get hurt, or he's tired. There's a terrible look and a terrible loss. And of course, Mike Tomlin takes some. You kidding me? I don't care if you didn't rest your starters. You were down 28-0 at home in a playoff game. Tomlin said afterwards, we died on the vine this season.
Oof.
Mike said some great quotes this year. I wish they would have played a little better because they did. And they literally died on the vine and ironically got picked off by a guy named Red Wine. It's all coming together. And Tomlin wears some and Roethlisberger, I think that was the last game. I'm going to call my shot. I think Ben Roethlisberger
Big Ben done, Mike?
I do. I think he's going to retire.
Is Big Ben done? I think the pride of Big Ben will bring him back for another season. To your point, Kyle. Yeah, I do think that we saw bad leadership from Ben Roethlisberger this season. I think we saw a guy who now we know why Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell got up out of town.
Both playing next weekend.
Both playing next weekend, by the way. I don't think this has been Roethlisberger's last game, but it wouldn't shock me if it was.
I remember you said if Drew Brees lost to the Bears that he'd come back. And it is, if you contrast the older quarterbacks that are in the playoffs, Tom Brady brought it at 100 up against Heineke, who was crushing it for the Washington football team. You had Drew Brees trying to do his thing out there at full go, and he didn't. But I don't know if retirements sell me on this because I picture it like this. I used to play my brother in Street Fighter all the time.
Yeah.
And he would just kick my butt. He played with Ryu. He always made me play with Ken. Couldn't ever get a Kirkland brand Ryu, right?
Sure.
Couldn't get it done. And then I would study after school, literally, and he just twiddled his thumbs like you were saying about Ben Roethlisberger, and I finally beat him. But it didn't make him quit the game. He came back and beat my butt like 19 times. So doesn't he can have that same Drew Brees? Like, I'm not going to end like this. I'm not going to go off like this.
Maybe. The Browns were chewing on his face like Blanca. I mean, it was maybe. To your point, can you, as a guy who was a pride and was a Hall of Fame, can you walk off like that?
Phil Rivers is different because like he ended, sorry to interrupt,
Sure.
on more of a high note. Like he had a good